What happens when you accidentally crash a stranger's family reunion and they actually welcome you? Last summer, I got invited to a barbecue by a coworker but mixed up the address. Ended up at a random house with balloons and a big family reunion banner. Before I could leave, an older lady handed me a plate of ribs and introduced me as Mike's friend to everyone. I didn't have the heart to correct her, so I spent the afternoon eating, laughing, and even playing cards with them. Never told them I wasn't invited. Still think about how kind they were. The GPS had been acting up all morning, recalculating every few minutes as I wound through the unfamiliar suburban streets. My coworker Mike had invited me to his family's annual summer barbecue, a gesture I'd appreciated considering I'd only been at the company for 3 months and hadn't made many friends yet. Moving to a new city at 28 had been harder than I'd anticipated. Most weekends found me alone in my apartment, scrolling through social media and watching other people live their lives. So when Mike casually mentioned the barbecue while we were grabbing coffee in the break room, I jumped at the invitation. "Yeah, man, you should totally come," he'd said, scribbling an address on a post-it note. "It's super casual. My family does this every year. Good food, good people." I'd looked at that yellow square of paper at least a dozen times during the week, excited to finally have weekend plans that didn't involve Netflix and takeout. But now standing in front of 2847 Maple Grove Drive, I was starting to think I'd made a terrible mistake. The house was a charming 2-story colonial with white siding and black shutters. The front yard was immaculate, with flower beds bursting with summer blooms, petunias, marigolds, and something purple I couldn't name. But what really caught my attention were the decorations. Dozens of colorful balloons tied to the mailbox, the porch railing, and even a few trees. A massive banner stretched across the front of the house, reading Henderson Family Reunion 2024 in bold red letters. Henderson, not Miller, which was Mike's last name. I pulled out my phone, squinting at the crumpled post-it note I'd photographed for safekeeping. 2847 Maple Grove Drive, that's what it said. But clearly this wasn't right. I must have misread Mike's handwriting, or maybe he'd written down the wrong number. I started to back away toward my car, already composing the apologetic text I'd send to Mike, when the front door swung open. "Well, don't just stand there in the heat, honey. Come on in." An older black woman stood in the doorway, her face lit up with a warm smile that crinkled the corners of her eyes. She wore a bright yellow sundress and a white apron that said "Kiss the Cook" in cheerful red letters. Her silver hair was styled in elegant curls, and she radiated the kind of maternal energy that made you want to confess all your problems and ask for advice. "Oh, I think there's been a mistake," I started, but she was already walking down the porch steps toward me. "Nonsense. Any friend of Mike's is family here. I'm Grandma Rose, but everyone just calls me Mama Rose." She reached out and took my hand in both of hers, her skin warm and soft. "You must be starving. Come on, let me fix you a plate. We've got ribs, chicken, potato salad, collard greens. Oh, and my famous peach cobbler for dessert." My stomach growled traitorously at the mention of food. I'd skipped breakfast, planning to save my appetite for the barbecue. "That's very kind, but I really think—" "No buts!" Mama Rose linked her arm through mine with surprising strength for someone who couldn't have been more than 5'2". "Mike told us all about you. Said you just moved here and don't know many folks yet." "Well, you're about to know plenty." "Mike," she'd said Mike. Maybe this was the right place after all. Perhaps Mike had family members named Henderson? Or maybe this was his mother's side of the family? I tried to remember if he'd ever mentioned his family tree during our brief conversations at work, but came up blank. We mostly talked about sports and complained about our boss's tendency to schedule meetings at 4:45 p.m. on Fridays. Before I could formulate another protest, Mama Rose had guided me through the front door and into a house that smelled like heaven. The aroma of smoked meat, fresh-baked bread, and sweet desserts mingled in the air. The living room had been transformed into a gathering space, with furniture pushed against the walls to make room for people. And there were a lot of people. At least 40 or 50 people filled the house and spilled out into the backyard, which I could see through the large sliding glass doors. Children ran around shrieking with laughter, teenagers clustered in corners with their phones, adults stood in groups chatting and laughing. Music played from somewhere, old-school R&B that I recognized but couldn't name. "Everyone!" Mama Rose's voice cut through the noise with surprising volume. "This is Mike's friend. He just moved to town." A chorus of hellos and waves greeted me. Several people called out welcomes. A man who looked to be in his 40s approached with his hand extended. "Good to meet you, man. I'm Marcus, Mama Rose's oldest son. Any friend of Mike's, you know?" He had a firm handshake and an easy smile. "You like ribs? My brother Jerome's been smoking them since 5 this morning. Best ribs you'll ever taste, I guarantee it." I'm sure they're great," I managed, my mind racing. Should I correct them now? Tell them I was at the wrong house? But Mama Rose was already pressing a plate into my hands. A real plate. Heavy ceramic with a floral pattern, not a flimsy paper plate. And the food piled on it looked incredible. "Now you go on outside and mingle," Mama Rose instructed, patting my shoulder. "Don't be shy. We're all family here." I found myself being gently propelled toward the backyard, still clutching my plate. The rational part of my brain was screaming that I should stop, explain the mistake, and leave. But another part, the part that had been lonely for months, the part that missed the warmth of family gatherings I'd left behind when I moved, That part kept my mouth shut. Just for a few minutes, I told myself. I'd eat some food, thank them for their hospitality, and then quietly slip away. No harm done. The backyard was even more impressive than the front. A large deck extended from the house, complete with a built-in grill where a man I assumed was Jerome tended to rows of ribs and chicken. Beyond the deck, the yard stretched out with a volleyball net set up on one side and a horseshoe pit on the other. Kids played on a swing set in the corner, and several picnic tables were scattered around, covered with red and white checkered tablecloths. I found an empty spot at one of the tables and sat down, finally looking at the food on my plate. The ribs were glazed with a dark, sticky sauce that glistened in the sunlight. The potato salad was creamy and studded with bits of celery and hard-boiled egg. The collard greens were perfectly cooked, not too soft, with visible pieces of smoked meat mixed in. There was also cornbread, baked beans, and coleslaw. I took a bite of the ribs and I swear I almost moaned out loud. They were incredible, tender enough to fall off the bone, with a perfect balance of sweet and tangy in the sauce, and a hint of smoke that spoke to hours of careful preparation. Good, right? I looked up to find a girl who couldn't have been more than 10 years old standing next to me, grinning. She had her hair in 2 puffs tied with bright pink ribbons, and she wore a t-shirt that said Henderson Family Reunion 2024, with a cartoon family printed on it. Really good, I agreed, wiping sauce from my chin with a napkin. Uncle Jerome makes them every year. He won't tell anyone his secret recipe. Says he's taking it to his grave. She giggled. I'm Destiny. What's your name? This was it. The moment to come clean. I opened my mouth to explain everything, but what came out was, I'm Alex. Cool. You want to play volleyball after you eat? We need one more person for teams. I'm not very good at volleyball, I admitted. That's okay. Neither is Uncle Marcus, but he plays anyway. It's fun. She bounced on her toes, full of the boundless energy only children seem to possess. Oh, and later we're doing the talent show. You should do something. Talent show. Yeah, everyone does something. Grandma Rose always sings. She has the most beautiful voice. And my cousin Jamal does magic tricks. Last year, Uncle Terry did stand-up comedy, but he wasn't very funny. She lowered her voice conspiratorially. Don't tell him I said that. I couldn't help but smile. Your secret's safe with me. Destiny. Leave the poor man alone and let him eat. A woman who must have been Destiny's mother called from across the yard. Okay, Mom. See you later, Alex. Destiny skipped away, and I was left alone with my thoughts and my plate of incredible food. I should leave. I knew I should leave. This was getting out of hand. But the ribs were so good, and everyone was so nice, and it had been so long since I'd felt like part of something. Just a little longer, I told myself. Just until I finish eating. As I worked my way through my plate, I observed the family around me. There was something beautiful about watching them interact. The easy affection, the inside jokes, the way the older generation kept an eye on the younger kids while the middle generation caught up with each other. I saw a teenage boy help his elderly grandfather to a chair. I watched 2 women who looked like sisters finish each other's sentences while laughing. I noticed how everyone seemed to know everyone else's business, but in a caring way, not a nosy way. Mind if I sit? An older man, probably in his 70s, gestured to the empty spot across from me. He had a weathered face that spoke of a life well lived, with deep laugh lines around his eyes and mouth. Please, I said, gesturing to the bench. He sat down with a slight groan, settling his own plate in front of him. Getting old ain't for the weak, he said with a chuckle. I'm Harold. Most folks call me Pops. Alex, I said, shaking his extended hand. His grip was still strong despite his age. So you're Mike's friend, huh? How do you 2 know each other? My heart started racing. This was dangerous territory. We work together, I said, which was technically true, even if it was the wrong Mike. That's good. Mike's a good boy. Always has been. Known him since he was in diapers. Pops took a bite of his ribs and nodded appreciatively. Jerome outdid himself this year. I made a non-committal sound of agreement, my mind spinning. Mike, whoever he was in this family, was someone Pops had known since infancy, which meant he was probably around my age, maybe younger. And he'd apparently told his family about me, or at least about a friend who'd just moved to town. The coincidence was too strange. What were the odds? You settling in okay? Pops asked. Moving to a new place can be tough. I remember when my Lorraine and I moved here back in '72, didn't know a soul. But we made friends, built a life. This house right here, he gestured around us. We bought it in '75, raised all our kids here. Now we got grandkids and great-grandkids running around. Time sure does fly. It's a beautiful home, I said honestly. And everyone's been very welcoming. That's how we do things in this family. Mama Rose, that's my Lorraine, God rest her soul, her sister. She always said there's no such thing as strangers, just friends you haven't met yet. He smiled, but there was sadness in his eyes. Lost my Lorraine 3 years ago come September, cancer. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. Thank you, son. But you know what? Days like this, I feel her here. In the laughter, in the love, in the way this family comes together. She'd be so happy to see it. He looked around the yard, his eyes misty. She loved these reunions. Spent weeks planning them. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, eating our food. I felt a pang of guilt for deceiving these kind people, but I also felt something else. A warmth, a sense of belonging that I hadn't experienced in months. "Pops, we need you for the horseshoe tournament!" A middle-aged man called from across the yard. "Duty calls," Pops said, standing up with another groan. "You should join us, Alex. We could use some young blood in the competition." "I've never played horseshoes," I admitted. "Even better. I love teaching people. Come on." And just like that, I found myself at the horseshoe pit, learning the finer points of the game from Pops while Marcus and another man named Darnell offered conflicting advice and good-natured trash talk. I was terrible at it. My first throw didn't even make it to the stake, but everyone cheered when I finally managed to get one to land within a foot of the target. "See? Natural talent," Pops declared, slapping me on the back. The afternoon wore on, and I kept telling myself I'd leave soon. After this game, after I helped clear some plates, after I tried the peach cobbler that everyone kept raving about. But each time I was about to make my exit, someone would pull me into another activity or conversation. I played volleyball with Destiny and a group of kids and adults, and we lost spectacularly but had a great time doing it. I listened to Uncle Terry's stand-up routine. Destiny was right. He wasn't very funny, but his enthusiasm was endearing. I learned how to play spades from 3 women who took the game very seriously and weren't afraid to talk trash when I made rookie mistakes. "You gotta pay attention to what's been played, baby," one of them, Aunt Sharon, instructed after I'd thrown the wrong card for the 3rd time. "This ain't go fish." But she said it with a smile. And when I finally started to get the hang of it, they all cheered like I'd won the lottery. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the backyard, Mama Rose announced it was time for the talent show. Everyone gathered on the deck and in the yard, finding seats or standing in groups. The kids sat cross-legged on the grass in front, their faces eager with anticipation. Destiny had been right about Grandma Rose's singing. She stood up and the crowd fell silent. Without any accompaniment, she began to sing "His Eye is on the Sparrow," and her voice was pure and clear and full of soul. It gave me goosebumps. When she finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the crowd, and the applause was thunderous. Various family members performed after that. Jamal's magic tricks were actually pretty impressive. A group of teenage girls did a choreographed dance to a Beyoncé song, and a little boy played "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star" on a recorder with more enthusiasm than skill. Then Destiny appeared at my elbow. "Your turn." "Oh no, I couldn't. Come on, Alex. Everyone does something." "Destiny, I really don't have a talent to share." But the crowd had heard her, and suddenly everyone was chanting, "Alex! Alex! Alex!" My face burned with embarrassment, but there was no way out. I stood up, my mind racing. What could I possibly do? I couldn't sing like Mama Rose. I didn't know any magic tricks. I definitely couldn't dance. Then I remembered something from my childhood. My grandfather had taught me how to whistle, not just regular whistling, but the kind where you could make it sound like birds. I'd practiced for hours as a kid, driving my parents crazy. "Okay," I said, holding up my hands. "I can whistle. I know it's not much, but let's hear it," someone called out. I took a deep breath and started to whistle a melody. "What a Wonderful World" by Louis Armstrong. It was a song my grandfather had loved, and I'd learned to whistle it for him before he passed away. As I whistled, I added the bird-like trills and variations he'd taught me, making it sound almost like a duet between a person and a songbird. The crowd was silent as I whistled, and when I finished, there was a moment of stunned quiet before everyone erupted in applause. Mama Rose had tears streaming down her face. "That was beautiful, baby," she said, pulling me into a hug. "Just beautiful." That was my Harold's favorite song. I hugged her back, feeling my own eyes getting misty. My grandfather's too. As the talent show continued, I found myself sitting next to Pops again. He didn't say anything, just patted my knee in a gesture that somehow conveyed understanding and acceptance and gratitude all at once. The evening deepened and someone started a fire in the fire pit. People gathered around it, roasting marshmallows and telling stories. I listened to tales of family history, how Pops and Lorraine had met at a church social, how Mama Rose had once accidentally dyed all the family's white laundry pink, how Uncle Jerome had proposed to his wife by hiding the ring in a plate of his famous ribs. She'd almost swallowed it. I contributed a few stories of my own, carefully edited to avoid any details that might reveal my deception. I talked about my grandfather, about moving to a new city, about the challenges of starting over. And people listened with genuine interest, offering advice and encouragement. "You know what you need?" Marcus said. "You need to come to our church. Great community there. We'll introduce you around, help you meet people. And you should join our bowling league," Darnell added. "We're always looking for new members." "Oh, and the neighborhood does a monthly potluck," Aunt Sharon chimed in. "You should come to the next one. I'll text you the details." They were already weaving me into their lives, making plans that extended beyond this one afternoon. The guilt I'd been suppressing all day came rushing back with force. These people were being so kind, so welcoming, and I was lying to them. I was an imposter at their family reunion, and with every passing hour, the deception felt worse. I needed to tell them the truth. I needed to come clean. But as I opened my mouth to confess, Destiny climbed into my lap, yawning. "I'm tired," she mumbled, resting her head against my chest. "But I don't want the reunion to end." Her mother smiled at me apologetically. "Sorry, she gets attached to people quickly." "It's okay," I said, and I meant it. I wrapped my arms around the sleepy child, feeling a fierce protectiveness that surprised me. "You're good with kids," Pops observed. "You got any of your own?" "No, sir, not yet. Haven't even found the right person to settle down with." "You will," Mama Rose said with certainty. "A nice young man like you? You'll find someone. And when you do, you bring her around. We'll want to meet her." The casual assumption that I'd be back, that I was now part of their circle, made my chest tight. I gently transferred Destiny to her mother's arms and stood up. "I should probably get going," I said. "It's getting late and I don't want to overstay my welcome." "Overstay? Honey, you could never," Mama Rose protested. "But if you need to go, you need to go. Let me pack you up some leftovers." "Oh, that's not necessary." But she was already heading toward the house, and I knew from experience that arguing with Mama Rose was futile. Marcus walked with me toward the front of the house. "Thanks for coming, man. It was great having you. Mike was right, you're good people." "Thanks," I managed, the guilt nearly choking me. Mama Rose emerged from the house with not one but 3 containers of food. "Now you've got ribs, potato salad, and peach cobbler in here. Should last you a few days. And don't be a stranger, you hear? You're welcome here anytime." "Thank you," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "For everything. This has been one of the best days I've had in a long time." "Aw, honey." She pulled me into another hug. "You're family now. Don't forget it." As I walked to my car, at least a dozen people called out goodbyes and told me to come back soon. I waved, smiled, and got into my car with my containers of food and a heart full of conflicting emotions. I sat there for a moment, looking at the house with its balloons and banner, at the warm light spilling from the windows, at the silhouettes of people still gathered around the fire pit. Then I pulled out my phone and finally checked the address Mike had actually given me. 2487 Maple Grove Drive, not 2847. I transposed the numbers. Such a simple mistake, and it had led to one of the most surreal and wonderful days of my life. I drove home in a daze, my mind replaying the day's events. When I got to my apartment, I put the leftovers in the fridge and sat on my couch, staring at nothing. I should have told them. I should have explained the mistake. But I hadn't, and now it felt too late. What would I even say? "Hey, remember me? I'm not actually Mike's friend. I crashed your family reunion by accident and lied to you all day." I pulled out my phone and finally texted the real Mike. "Hey, sorry I couldn't make it to the barbecue today. Something came up. Hope it was fun." He texted back almost immediately. "No worries, man." It was pretty low-key. "Just me and a few buddies. We'll do it again sometime." So the real barbecue had been a small, casual thing. Nothing like the Henderson family reunion. I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with regret. I'd missed Mike's actual event, but I'd stumbled into something far more meaningful. Over the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about the Hendersons. I ate the leftovers slowly, savoring each bite and remembering the conversations, the laughter, the warmth. I kept expecting to feel worse about the deception, but instead I felt grateful. Those people had given me something I desperately needed, a sense of belonging, a reminder of what community felt like. A week later, I was at the grocery store when I heard a familiar voice. Alex, is that you?" I turned to see Destiny running toward me, her mother following behind with a shopping cart. My heart stopped. This was it. The moment of truth. Destiny's mother would ask how I knew Mike, or mention something about the reunion, and the whole house of cards would come tumbling down. "Hi, Destiny," I said, bracing myself. "Mom, this is Alex. From the reunion. He does the cool whistling." Destiny's mother smiled warmly. "Of course. It's good to see you again, Alex. Destiny hasn't stopped talking about you. She wants to learn how to whistle like you do." "I'd be happy to teach her sometime," I heard myself say. "That would be wonderful. Hey, are you coming to the potluck next month? Aunt Sharon mentioned she was going to invite you." This was my chance. I could make an excuse, distance myself, let the connection fade naturally. Instead, I said, "I'd love to. Just let me know when and where." We exchanged phone numbers, and as they walked away, Destiny turned and waved enthusiastically. I waved back, feeling like I'd just crossed some invisible line. Over the following weeks, I did go to the potluck, and then to a bowling night, and then to Sunday dinner at Mama Rose's house. Each time I told myself I'd come clean, explain the mistake. But each time I couldn't bring myself to do it. The Hendersons had adopted me into their family, and I couldn't bear the thought of losing that. I became a regular fixture at their gatherings. I helped Pops with yard work. I taught Destiny how to whistle. She was a quick learner. I learned to play spades well enough that Aunt Sharon and her friends actually wanted me as a partner. I even started going to their church, where the community was as warm and welcoming as the family itself. And slowly, I stopped feeling like an imposter. I stopped waiting for someone to call me out. Because the truth was, they'd accepted me not because of Mike, whoever he was, but because of who I was. They'd seen something in me worth welcoming, worth including, worth loving. 6 months after the reunion, I was at Mama Rose's house for Sunday dinner when she pulled me aside. "Alex, honey, I need to tell you something." My stomach dropped. This was it. Someone had figured it out. "I know you're not really Mike's friend," she said gently. I felt the blood drain from my face. "Mama Rose, I'm so sorry. I tried to tell you that first day, but you were so kind, and I was so lonely, and..." She held up a hand, stopping my rambling apology. Hush now. Let me finish. I closed my mouth, waiting for the anger, the disappointment, the rejection I deserved. Instead, she smiled. I knew from the start, baby. Mike, my grandson Mike, he was supposed to bring a friend that day, but he called me that morning and said his friend couldn't make it. When you showed up, I figured you were at the wrong place. But you looked so lost, so alone. And I thought, well, the Lord works in mysterious ways. Maybe you needed us as much as we needed you. Tears were streaming down my face now. You knew? This whole time? This whole time. And you know what? You've been a blessing to this family. You've brought joy to Pops when he was grieving. You've been a good role model for Destiny. You've made us all laugh and reminded us that family isn't just about blood. It's about love and choice and showing up. I should have told you, I said, my voice breaking. I should have been honest. Maybe, but you were honest in the ways that mattered. You were yourself. You let us in. You became part of our family not because of some mistake or coincidence, but because you chose to stay. And we chose to keep you. She pulled me into a hug, and I sobbed into her shoulder like a child. Does everyone know? I asked when I could speak again. Just me and Pops. We figured the others didn't need to know. Far as they're concerned, you're Mike's friend who became our friend. And that's true enough, isn't it? I nodded, unable to speak. Now dry those tears and come eat. I made your favorite, pot roast with all the fixings. That was 2 years ago. I'm writing this now from Mama Rose's backyard, where we're having another family reunion. But this time, I'm not a stranger who wandered in by mistake. I'm family. I'm here with my girlfriend, Sarah, who I met at the church the Hendersons introduced me to. Destiny is teaching her how to play spades. Sarah's terrible at it, but Destiny is patient. Pops is showing me his new garden, proud of the tomatoes he's growing. Marcus just asked if I wanted to join his fantasy football league. And Mama Rose is in the kitchen, probably making enough food to feed an army, wearing her Kiss the Cook apron and humming hymns. I think about that day often, the day I accidentally crashed a stranger's family reunion. I think about how a simple mistake, a transposed number, changed the entire trajectory of my life. I think about how close I came to leaving, to missing out on all of this. But mostly I think about kindness. About how Mama Rose saw a lost young man and chose to welcome him instead of turning him away. About how a family of strangers chose to include me in their joy, their traditions, their love. I never did find out who the Mike was that was supposed to bring a friend that day. Maybe he was a cousin I never met, or maybe he was someone's friend from work. It doesn't really matter, because in the end, I became the friend who showed up. I became the person who stayed. People ask me sometimes if I ever feel guilty about how it all started. And honestly, not anymore. Because Mama Rose was right, the Lord works in mysterious ways. Sometimes you end up exactly where you're supposed to be, even if you got there by accident. Last week, Mama Rose asked me to be in charge of the grill at next year's reunion. Jerome's getting too old to stand over that smoker all day, she said. And you've been learning from him. It's time to pass the torch. I accepted, honored, and terrified in equal measure. Those are big shoes to fill. But I've got a year to practice, and Jerome has promised to teach me all his secrets, even the rib recipe he swore he'd take to his grave. Family's different now, he told me with a wink. And your family. So here I am, part of a family I found by accident, in a place I never meant to be, living a life I never could have imagined. And I wouldn't change a single thing, except maybe I'd tell my younger self, the one standing nervously in front of that house with the balloons and the banner, unsure whether to stay or go. Stay. Always stay. Because sometimes the best things in life happen when you end up somewhere you weren't supposed to be. And sometimes the family you need is the one that chooses you, not the one you're born into. As the sun sets on another Henderson family reunion, I look around at these people who have become my people. At Destiny, now 12 and teaching the younger kids how to whistle. At Pops, still going strong at 79. At Marcus and Darnell arguing good-naturedly about the horseshoe tournament. At Aunt Sharon and her spades crew already setting up for their evening game. And at Mama Rose, the woman who saw past my awkward lies and nervous energy to the lonely person underneath. The woman who chose kindness over suspicion, inclusion over exclusion, love over judgment. She catches my eye and smiles, raising her glass of sweet tea in a silent toast. I raise mine back, and in that moment, I understand something profound. Home isn't always where you start. Sometimes it's where you accidentally end up. And sometimes the best families are the ones you find when you're lost. I was supposed to be at a different barbecue that day. I was supposed to be making small talk with coworkers, eating decent food, and going home to my empty apartment. Instead, I found a family. I found belonging. I found home. All because I mixed up an address and a kind woman handed me a plate of ribs. Best mistake I ever made.